Welcome to Fight the Good Fight Club, the podcast about the relentless pursuit of a life and relationships filled with purpose, love, joy, and peace. If you're ready to get real and dig deep, then you're ready for Fight the Good Fight Club.
Hey everyone, welcome to our episode today with Cynthia and Marcel, and we are covering lesson number 68 in A Course in Miracles, and that lesson is Love Holds No Grievances. Marcel.
Yeah, so this lesson sums up the entire course, like so many independent lessons in the course. Many of them can sum up the course. But this one is going to dovetail into the grievances that we have inside, but more importantly, the feelings that underlie them and how to let them go. But really, if you think about it, there's only two emotions. There's love and fear. And you can't have love from your heart if there's fear. And also grievances.
They can't occupy the same space. They can't
occupy the same space. That's correct. So if you have any grievances, then you won't have all the love that you could experience in life. So, and you can't have, the love that most people want in a relationship, pure love. Love can't be pure if there's something tarnished in it, and it's usually a grievance. And there's a grievance there because there's a feeling underlying it. And again, what are grievances? Grievances are things that have happened to us, things that we've done to others. They're things that we're holding on to that continually happen. We could have one thing happen to us in life, no matter what it is. Someone could have done something to us, and they did it once, but we repeatedly do it to ourselves over and over and over because we're holding on to it, we're not letting go. So sometimes I feel we are taking these lessons out of context because it's a topic, love holds no grievances, but really we're dovetailing this whole podcast into letting go. But letting go of what? Feelings that are underlying the grievances. So love holds no grievances is really what we're talking about. But so if that's true, so that's a truth in and of itself, right? But what does it mean? Love holds no grievances. Well, grievances are blocking pure love, and it's the feelings underneath those. And so there has to be an expounding upon the concepts will help us achieve what the lesson's trying to help us achieve. Is saying if you want love, then don't have any grievances because love doesn't hold grievances. And if you're holding a grievance, then you don't have love. So really that's what this whole lesson's about. And then we're also going to rely on something outside of A Course in Miracles called a book. It's called Letting Go by Dr. David R. Hawkins. And me personally, when you think about it, for me, the grievances I have held against others, it's usually family, right, or someone close to us, and you need to look no further, right?
Well, only people close to us, only those close to us can hurt us, right? A random stranger might irritate us, cutting us off in traffic, but really the deep hurts come from people we love.
That's exactly right. And so deep down, when you love holds no grievances, many of the lessons in A Course teach us how to let those grievances go. And in particular, don't recall off the top of my head, but so many of them are you sit there and you just wait till something comes to your mind. A lot of lessons are so-and-so this, so-and-so that. You probably have so-and-so in mind. Person comes up, whatever happened, what was said, what was done, what should have been done but wasn't. Someone should have protected you, they didn't. And so these things, when they come up, you sit there and then you send the person love. You say, well, how can I do that? They cause me pain. That's what I do. You're trying to send out love and you're trying to let that feeling go. And it's very, very difficult because we become accustomed that feeling is part of us. We don't want to let it go. This grievance, we love holding it. And we don't realize how much we love the pain because why would we?
Well, it's easy, right?
It's what we know,
yeah.
Right? Until we learn that we have to let things go in order to move on. And we hold that. And when you hold something inside of you, there's a term called projecting. We project that outwards onto other people, and we blame a person for what we're feeling when the feeling we have. That's a key concept here today, right? You and I were talking about this. I used to think you think something and then you feel it. Because of your thoughts, you're feeling something. And boy, was I wrong. It's almost like if someone tells you to meditate and you think, oh, they said medicate, so you take drugs, right? It's just a slight twist, right?
No, that's just you because you're crazy.
Well, I was told 30 years ago that medicate was the key to my happiness, so I've been taking drugs ever since.
Yeah.
No, that person said
You
meditate.
mean to tell me my wine isn't actually
That's
fixing
right.
things?
That's right.
No, you're lying. Okay, that's it.
So the concept, so the analogy here is, I've always thought thoughts produced feelings. And no, it's the feelings we have inside of us that produce thoughts. Classic example, and you may have done this, or you may have had someone in your life do this. If someone thinks you're cheating, that feeling inside that they feel you're cheating will produce a myriad of thoughts, right? It's the thoughts you're having because of the feeling. Feelings first, thoughts second. And that to me was a big breakthrough. So that's whole concept of letting go is
And then it manifests,
letting go
right?
of what? Not the thoughts. You got to get down to the source. You got to let go of the feelings. And that's where it's difficult. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it sounds, and then you manifest it. But absolutely. So we're all up in our heads creating
the thoughts, right? Thoughts start beginning more thoughts, but meanwhile, what's the source? It's the feelings.
Yeah.
But we can be very afraid to address those feelings.
Well, yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, for a very simple example, if you believe that you are overweight, I'm working it out in my head. My brain is slow today. I'm like, hold on, am I doing this backwards or whatever? But if I feel heavy, let me back up. So if I'm feeling not good enough, I may think that it's because I'm overweight.
Right.
So now I start focusing and obsessing about losing weight.
Yeah.
And what happens inevitably? You gain weight.
Exactly.
Nothing looks good.
Yes.
You've completely convinced yourself. You stay home. You don't go to a party because you can't get the dress, because you feel like you're overweight, and then you're miserable. So you create this whole story and this whole scenario about not getting the things that you want because you believe that you're overweight. So if I lose weight, everything's going to be fixed.
And the big thing, why do you have those feelings deep down?
Because I don't believe that I'm good enough.
And then you got to ask again, why is that? Did somebody say something when you were younger? Did someone call you fat? And it produced a feeling in you of low self-esteem, low self-worth, maybe shaming. So
maybe your mother, your father, or your grandmother or someone, they were always losing weight. I was just watching, what was that? I was watching some show where the mother was obsessing about her weight all the time. So the daughter started obsessing about her weight all the time. So she had horrible relationships, if she had them at all.
Yeah.
And it was always about that. But really, at the end of the day, she saw her mother's example that her mother didn't feel that she was good enough unless she was thin and beautiful. Yeah. So the daughter then wanted her mother's love. And the way to get her mother's love, obviously, was to be thin and beautiful. Yeah. Oh, you know what? This is actually... Where's this show? I was watching This Is Us. You know that show?
I actually don't.
Okay. All right. There's a really popular show. Is that what it's called? This Is Us? I just don't pay attention.
What's the gist of?
So the girl, what's her name? That really beautiful woman who is really, really, really large, plays a character.
Delta Burke?
No, it's current. She plays this character, and then there's this African American guy who is in. So it's a family, and it's multi-generational, and they're triplets. There's the actor. The one brother is an actor, and he's an alcoholic, and he has horrible relationships. And then there's a brother that's adopted who's African American. and they adopted him.
Not the last OG.
Because he died. No, it's
don't even know
on
it's-
ABC or CBS or NBC or whatever.
watch
It's
much.
it's an ongoing series. I watch it all the time. It's so funny. I never remember the titles of shows.
What's the gist?
But the gist is that there's these 3 siblings. Okay, the one. And they all have these issues, and the mother has issues. Anyway, the mother's really beautiful. It's Mandy Moore. The singer Mandy Moore is the mother.
Okay.
And the father who dies is Ventimiglia.
Okay.
Do you know who I'm talking about, Jesse? It's a really powerful. I'll
What's
look it
the
up on my
gist?
phone. Anyway, it's a family, and they all have all these issues. And the gist is that the girl, the daughter, feels that she couldn't get her mother's love because she ate a lot. The daughter.
I see.
And she felt like she couldn't get her mother's love because she wasn't thin and beautiful like her mother, so she would gain weight.
Okay. You know what come to my mind?
Why are you torturing me with this question? I don't remember all this stuff.
Well,
the bottom line
Here-
is the story that I'm telling you about.
how the feelings came about?
Yes.
Well, what came to my mind was Despicable Me when he was creating all this stuff. Mom, she's like, eh. He built a spaceship out of mac and cheese.
What show is this?
Despicable Me.
When
the
is
movie.
this? When does this happen? What's this? What's the kid? What's going on? What's your point?
Okay. You can do revenge after the show. So- all right. Here's another.
I don't watch.
yes.
I don't watch those shows. I don't watch those movies. What are you talking about? We're like 2 kids just poking each other all the time, touching me. You're touching me. You're touching me. You're touching me. Okay.
So,
What was the topic again?
the love holds no grievances, and you have to let go of feelings that were generated by grievances. And so, if
Are we creating a grievance right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
But yes, so the point is the point is having a feeling, whether it's true or not. I mean, in some cases, it could be
Yeah.
really true. I mean, you could have, a parent that tortures you. I mean,
Yeah.
I have the feelings that I was abandoned as a child. So I've spent my entire life feeling not good enough.
Yeah. So exactly. So when I think about this and the example that comes to my mind, I want to talk about when I was married and the other person. So, but yeah. So.
And we're going to be talking about
So
that examples in the next segment.
Yeah.
But just to wrap up, so as we're wrapping up this segment and we're coming out, we're defining this lesson number 68, love holds no grievances, and letting go.
And grievances are wrongdoings in our life, sources of pain, sources of suffering, things that are in us that are triggered, it seems, or we can blame someone else, but the feelings are there. It could be anybody. If we go from one relationship to another, to another, to another, and we always start blaming the other person for how we feel, when really the feelings are already in us and they may be triggering them or whatever, but the whole point is these are grievances, underlying them are feelings, and love holds no grievances.
Right. Okay, so
So if we're holding the grievance, we don't have love.
Gotcha. So this episode, what we're doing is we're defining it. We're talking about the consequences
Yes.
of not letting go. And then we are going to talk about the benefits, the good stuff you get when you let go of those horrible feelings. And then at the end of this episode, you want to hear the whole thing because we're going to give you some nuggets on how you can start to do this in your life. So let's go ahead and wrap. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the consequences. We're going to give some real life examples of what happens when you don't let go.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. For more tips and ways to dig deep and get real, sign up for our newsletter, read blogs, and shop our merch at fightthegoodfightclub.com.
And welcome back to Fight the Good Fight Club with Cynthia and Marcel. And today we are talking about A Course in Miracles, lesson number 68, Love Holds No Grievances. And then also Marcel is reading Letting Go by Dr. David R. Hawkins.
Correct.
And what's the subtitle? The Pathway
To Surrender.
To Surrender. So we're talking about how grievances hold the space in our minds and in our feelings, and they block and they keep us from feeling the love and the joy.
Correct. And so this dovetails also to the original whole idea of this. This is the good fight, is letting go of grievances. So what happens in life, well, I should speak about myself. What's happened to me in my past is usually someone that I'm with, inevitably I feel they've had a vision of happiness in their mind and they projected it, and I was a part of the vision of their happiness, which problem there is that happiness is so tied to me and what they expect of me and that what they want me to do, I'm inevitably going to let them down. So that tarnishes their happiness, makes them feel they blame me for not being happy. Meanwhile, but what have I done in this? Well, what I've done personally is I grew up poor. So I've always had a vision of success and what it would take, and it usually was tied to career or whatever. So when I graduated, I immediately went into my career. I couldn't wait to start working. So, quote, workaholic or whatever, which isn't good in some relationships. Some relationships that could be good or whatever, but I was working off my inner feelings of poverty, wanting, being poor. So I was working out my own issues in life by trying to achieve success. Meanwhile, another person's vision of happiness was to be there for them or whatever, but how could I be there for them when I'm working? So I'm not blaming anything on anybody I've ever been with. So there's underlying dynamics of certain feelings at play here. And that's the whole idea of this whole subject, is getting down to everything we need is within us, but many times it's blocked by ourselves. Somebody could have done something, created a grievance, but we are the ones holding on to the grievance, blocking the happiness that's within us. So, the consequence. So, me personally. So, that vision of happiness from someone else being imposed on me and me letting them down exacerbates into a quote. All of a sudden, the relationship's gone south. Here's another one that's not working out. And the bottom line is, why do I stay there? Because I don't know how to fix it. Bottom line, why don't I do something? Well, I'm too shameful feeling. I feel guilty that another relationship's not working out. I'm afraid to be the bad guy to end it. Like in my last one, I knew it wasn't good, so I hid at work and I worked it off and channeled all those feelings into something good. Hey, as long as I'm helping other people, everything's going to be okay. Meanwhile, there's a festering situation at home from both of us. Neither of us are happy for different reasons, but we're blaming each other for it. And so when I got down to my feelings, and here's the point, I felt shame and guilt because another relationship wasn't working out, and I was afraid to end it because I was afraid of what people would think about me. And that's the thing that I couldn't identify, what was really going on, why I would stay for years in a bad relationship. It was really shame and guilt, which, as Dr. Hawkins says, are the lowest level energies in us, are shame and guilt. And so you overcome those by being honest with yourself.
Okay, that's actually really powerful. And I would guess that a lot of our listeners are probably starting to connect and realize, because I remember when you and I were talking about that and you were giving me that example, I started to think about how that manifested in my life.
Yeah.
And I came up with this statement. We were driving over to the studio and I was rolling it around in my head, what you were saying. And I was kind of thinking, okay, what does this look like? And this is what I came up with. And I wrote this down and you said, yes, that's exactly right. So because I felt that I was abandoned as a child, it created feelings of guilt and shame.
Yes.
The thoughts that came up as a result of those feelings of guilt and shame were that I wasn't good enough. So I started to create those thoughts. And as a result, I accepted or attracted negative or toxic relationships to validate my feelings of not good enough.
Exactly.
So what does that look like for me? I'll give you an example, and Marcel and I, we were talking about this. It brought up this memory of my 40th birthday. So 40th birthday is a big deal, right? For almost everybody. What do we get to at 40? You know, you've got your 20, you've got those milestone birthdays. So for my 40th birthday, I was married, my ex-husband, and I had a dear, my best friend. P.S. Neither one of them are in my life. And here's a good reason why. So for my 40th birthday, what I really wanted, my ex-husband asked me, what do you want for your 40th birthday? I said, I want to have a party. I want to have all the people that I love at this birthday party. And my ex-husband, did I say ex? Yeah, my ex-husband looked at me and said, you should do that with your friend. Go do that. You go do that. And my toxic, did I say toxic? Ex-best friend was dying to take me away from my husband because she wanted to be my everything in our relationship. She said, let's go away. Let's go to New York. And I'm going to plan this amazing 40th birthday. So my ex-husband, who didn't know how to give love and share love, said, go away. My toxic friend who wanted to take me away said, we're going to New York, just the two of us. So I said, yes, that sounds amazing. I'm going to not be with my husband, and I'm going to be with my toxic friend who wants to totally control everything in my life, and that's going to be amazing. So I had a fabulous 40th birthday party, 40th birthday weekend, by the way. She planned it. We went to museums. We went to dinners. It was phenomenal. It was an amazing birthday. Was it what I really, really, really wanted? No. It wasn't. Because I wanted to be with a bunch of people. And by the way, now nobody's with me. And how I know that that was basically not what I wanted is because for my 50th birthday, I went to my boyfriend, who, by the way, is in my life and who does love me. He said to me, what do you want for your 50th birthday? I said, I really want to do something really fun, but I don't think we could do it because it's not here. He said, Cynthia, what do you really want? I said, well, I want to have my favorite dinner and I want to spend it with you. And he said, where do you want to go? And my boyfriend, who loves me, my partner, who really loves me, was asking me questions about me. What would make me happy? And I'd never had that before. Really, I never had. And I said, well, I love, wow, my favorite food, it's a restaurant in Miami. He said, okay. And then what else do you want to do? I said, well, I want to spend a weekend just having fun. And Marcel came back and said, why don't I'm going to plan this for you. And we ended up planning a beautiful dinner in Miami. And then he planned a beautiful weekend in the Keys. And the two of us had the best time. We were just laughing. And it was honestly the best birthday. And funny enough, people, it's the only birthday that I really remember almost every single thing about that weekend. I am 53 years old, and I can't tell you if you asked me to sit down and write out what happened for any birthday in my entire life. But I remember that one.
I do have to say one of my favorite moments was when we went to that place called Better Than Sex.
The dessert place? Yeah.
And we both ate so much sweets. We got sick. And all we did was go home sick. Nothing happened. We just fell asleep. That's my favorite part.
I did. We came home, we turned on TV. I put my head on your lap. And I was like, we walked back to the bed and breakfast. And I think I actually threw up.
And I said, this is better than sex. That was funny.
I was heaving. I went into sugar coma. because I had this glass of wine that had this dark chocolate dripping, and it was wine, and we had this dessert. Like, I remember we laughed.
So it proves a
so
point
hard.
when you're genuinely happy. Doesn't matter what happens, you're still happy.
Oh my gosh. But we stopped, and you went and fed the tarpons.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
We fed the tarpons.
We fed the tarpons.
Yes.
But I remember I really had so much joy watching you, honey, look at these fish. And I was taking pictures of you. And it's like, oh my God. It was just so much fun. It was so much fun. Like, every part of that weekend, you and I can both remember, listening to Glenn Campbell. What was it? Like a rhinestone cowboy driving down. There are literally, I can't even tell you.
You built new feelings. You replaced a lot of those old feelings. A lot of those old feelings just dissipated.
Well, I wasn't
You let them go.
creating those feelings of not good enough, and that the guilt and the shame and the thoughts that I had to. What would happen was, traditionally, was that I felt like I had to really, really please the people that were in my life so that they would tell me how wonderful I was, so that I felt good enough. Right? So my ex-husband, whatever his role was, he's like, go off. I really wanted to feel love with somebody. Yeah. I wanted to create these fun memories. And then my friend, I would do anything that she wanted to do, anything at all.
Sure. Because
I wanted her to stay. I didn't want to be abandoned. I didn't want to be abandoned by my husband. I didn't want to be abandoned by my friend, which of course was going to happen. Everybody abandoned me at some point, which is why I kept trying to create these feelings of good enough.
What I find interesting, when you told your ex-husband, I really want to spend it with people I love, he says, you need to go spend it with someone else.
I swear that. So I pleased him. So I went away because I wanted to make him happy.
That wasn't a clue. So there it was. Right. So it's good that you can laugh about it now, because you and I, the whole purpose of this whole thing was you and I used to have these conversations on a couch, right? And part of it was we wanted to work through this. So the consequences really of being stuck in a place of not knowing what you really, the cause of your unhappiness isn't other people, it's the feelings you have within that you never addressed, right?
Exactly.
Those are the consequences. So you live a miserable life because you never address what's really going on inside of you.
Well, what's happening is that I kept, when I'm looking back at what was going on during this time, is that I kept attracting toxic relationships. I can literally name them off. Contracts, toxic work experiences, toxic friendships, toxic relationships. I mean, it's funny because when I left my ex-husband, I went into a relationship with a boyfriend who was probably one of the most toxic human beings I've ever felt in my life. Because I had to, I have to just find the grand poobah of relate, because I'm an overachiever, right? I have to top my toxic relationship with an even worse toxic relationship. This guy was showing me feelings of emotions. Like he had to have me, right? He had to have me. So he's writing me and calling me and telling me how beautiful I am and how amazing and how he's going to be the best guy ever. Now I leave this relationship where I'm totally starved, devoid of any feeling, right? Other than unhappiness,
right,
to go into this relationship with this guy who is just smothering me with wanting me and calling me and texting me, and he's going to conquer me. And for whatever his feelings were, whatever he was trying to conquer, what I was getting was, oh my gosh, I'm so beautiful and I'm so amazing and I'm so fabulous with the most toxic human being on the planet.
You know, it's one of the things I loved about you, because I got to witness you in that whole relationship.
Wasn't it fabulous?
that I watched you go from here.
From the top?
Every time I would see you periodically, every time, you were just taking another leg down.
So yeah, you were watching me through all that because you
but
were...
I also saw how hard you were trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And you couldn't figure out why it wasn't working.
Yeah.
But then again, coming back.
Well, I
to
started my business during that time. My second business, because I lost my first one during my marriage. But so now I start building, and you would ask me, "How are you doing?" And I was doing the same thing that you were doing: working, building a business, working to build a business, working to lose weight, working to be cute, working to fill everybody's expectations.
That's it.
And you watched me because you did that too. You said
It's the consequences. So at the end of the day, again, it comes back fighting the good fight and the consequences of being in a relationship. Love holds no grievances. You won't have love. I mean, real love from the heart, pure. And that's the consequences. When you hold on to grievances, which are underneath those are the feelings that we need to dissipate. So
how did this manifest in your life? Because during this time I was talking to you, how did holding on to grievances, what were the consequences that you experienced in your life?
So holding on to the grievances and things I was going through, again, I do want to emphasize the reason I did was because I felt shameful and guilty if I would take an action to liberate myself. So liberation was just a decision away, but what's holding me back was shame and guilt of failing or whatever. So, but the consequences of me not being truthful and acting on the truth of my own feelings kept me prisoner that I was blaming someone else for. You see, being the victim in a relationship doesn't work. We are always.
So how did that look like? How did that manifest? Give us an example of how that manifested in your marriage.
Oh my goodness. I think I have told this before, but one of the consequences was I literally was just beat to a pulp because I wasn't validating someone else's happiness or their existence. So, and I found myself laying in my driveway hoping that there was a little cloud that would strike me dead with a lightning bolt. And I can tell you it's funny now, but I really felt that I wanted a lightning bolt to strike me.
Well, there's a story.
That's how bad. But so what does that say? How much it meant for me to not want to feel shame and guilt in other people's eyes.
You were willing
that
to
I
take
failed,
anything.
That I failed yet again.
Oh, honey.
Yeah. So, and those are the consequences, really. So it really is nothing about the other person. It all comes back to me wanting
to you feeling, to your wanting.
And now those are Dr. Hawkins said, those are the lowest level energies, shame and guilt.
Yeah.
And it really comes back to the scarlet letter type thing, feeling shameful or whatever. So I overcame all that. So.
Okay. So we're going to take a break.
Yep.
And when we come back from a break, now we've talked about the lesson. We've talked about the consequences, and when we come back, we're going to do the good stuff. Now that we've wrapped you up in yuck, we're going to pull you out, and we're going to talk about how to let go and the benefits, what we get.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. For more tips and ways to dig deep and get real, sign up for our newsletter, read blogs, and shop our merch at fightthegoodfightclub.com.
And you're back with Marcel and Cynthia. And today we are talking about lesson 68 from A Course in Miracles, Love Holds No Grievances. Okay, so we have identified how you can determine whether you're holding grievances. We've talked about the yuck of rolling around in it and what happens, the consequences. Now we're going to talk about the yummies. We're going to talk about letting go and the benefits of letting go of grievances. Marcel, tell us what that looks like.
So starting from ground zero, which is shame and guilt with the lowest level energies, and moving up the ladder to fear. And I'm kind of feeding off of Dr. Hawkins' chart. At the top are
you're talking
joy.
About the book, Letting Go.
So the benefits.
Dr. David Hawkins, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender.
Which again, part of the show, biggest impetus was to help us heal our own minds and heal ourselves and overcome those awful feelings that projected bad thoughts that created the roller coaster ride of happiness and unhappiness in life. We wanted the steady flow.
That's right.
So the Course in Miracles helps trigger it, but other material does help understand a lot of the lessons, which each lesson in and of itself states a truth. So the biggest benefits are a consistent, steady flow of joy, peace, bliss. And that's really what I believe everyone wants, because that's that deep yearning inside that says you're unhappy. It's that quiet voice saying, hey, you're unhappy, or I'm not happy. That's that inner voice. So the benefit is you've heard that voice, and now you can live a truly loving, happy, healthy life. That's the biggest benefit.
So when you've experienced, just so for our audience, so they can understand what we're saying here, because you're making a really, really excellent point here. When you've experienced true happiness and joy, and you know what that looks like, because we are human, right? When those things start to come in that are the opposite of joy and peace, now we can more readily identify that.
Exactly. So this coming from your heart, which is where love comes and emanates from, not your head, which is you're projecting an image of happiness. Okay, that image of happiness comes from your head. And when someone ruins it, you blame them. But in reality, when you remove these grievances, these obstacles, get rid of those old feelings, let them go, then the love can flow from your heart. And that's the benefit. The love is now coming from your heart.
Okay, so back to that statement then. So if I'm understanding this correctly, what you're saying is that if I am having positive emotions, then I'm having positive thoughts.
Yes.
That are
life supportive. Yes.
Exactly. So I'm creating.
And it's unconditional.
Okay.
It's not, if you act that way, then I'm happy. If you do this for me, then I am happy. That's all coming from your head, the projection. This is coming from, you're just happy. You're emanating love, and then you see someone who's toxic, geez.
You kind of feel allergic to it.
It's no longer about you, because everything is usually about ourselves when we're projecting in the relationships, and it's a codependent relationship, right? Okay. This is the benefits are true happiness that's independent of anyone or anything outside of yourself. The happiness is coming from within you. And so love holds no grievances. So if you're holding no grievances, then you have love. And that's what that whole lesson's about, is letting go. And so you have love coming from within you. Again, back to the original premise of this whole podcast, everything we need is within us. So you emanate love and you project love, no matter who you're with or what you're doing or where you are. The love's coming out of you, and there's no grievances blocking it. So that's the biggest benefit that granted, it's a work in progress for me personally, because I do sometimes vacillate for many reasons. So, but it's the awareness, and it's getting better, and I'm getting better and better at it.
So you're living more. Yeah. The goal is to live more in a constant state of happiness.
That's it.
Than unhappiness.
Yeah, it's like I've run marathons before. The marathon's the easy thing. It's training for it that's difficult. So here I know these feelings. I've tasted them. It's like a 5K. Oh, I got the taste of a 5K. I can't wait to run that marathon. I can't wait till this is permanent, and that nothing is going to dislodge me from this inner state of being. And those are the highest levels of energy, joy, and peace and love. And that's where I want to stay. But I know I'm working my way up to that point.
Yeah.
And so it started with this podcast because we've worked out a lot of things, right? But this is a lesson in and of itself, if you can really understand what it's trying to convey to you, or I understood what it was trying to convey to me. Love holds no grievances. Therefore, to have love, you can't hold any grievances. So how do you let those, why do you keep blaming someone else? You can't blame someone else.
Yeah.
If someone did one thing to you, you have to forgive it. And if you don't, you're holding on to it, which means you're holding, and those feelings from you holding on, you're doing it to yourself now. Yeah. You're constantly going over that grievance, and you're generating that feeling within you. And how do you let it go?
And sometimes the feeling comes up, and it's really important also to realize that this is an ongoing thing. Yeah. I love to use the example of my family and how, I've forgiven my family and have humbled myself to accept forgiveness. Yeah. And so there are times, we just went on vacation with them. There are times that, I get these feelings come up from way back. But now I recognize when that's happening. And I know what it feels like to be happy and to have a great relationship and how the benefits that I'm getting now. And I know that this is a relationship that I want to keep. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm amazed at you, because a lot of your pain and grief in life, the feelings are generated because of the way you're brought up. So now you've reconciled that, but then they talk about the one person that can trigger. So you have like a double whammy.
Our politics. So our politics are separate. It's funny. Here's actually a really great example. Here's a great example.
You've overcome all that, and you don't let it disturb your peace.
I don't.
I'm smiling. I'm not laughing. Yeah. I'm smiling because you've come such a long way that you are such in touch with the happiness within you. Yeah. That if there was ever a setup to ruin it, it's where all those feelings were generated, or you're now back in touch with this group of people, and they're talking about the worst thing that can trigger that. So it's like,
well, it's not the worst, but it's definitely a trigger. But let's let our audience in on the joke. Actually, it's really funny because we were on vacation about a week or 2 weeks ago, and Marcel was telling me a story of how my family was talking about this element of politics. This element of politics. Yeah. And he's like, well, they were saying, shh, Cynthia's coming. Shh, stop talking. And you said, well, I didn't know what to do because I didn't want you to feel like I was in on this thing, on this joke or this, that they were holding something against you. I didn't know how to feel about it. And I said, oh, no, you may not know this, but actually a couple of vacations ago, we got in the car. My brother picked us up at the airport. I'm in the car with my parents and my brother, and they start talking about this that frankly is not in alignment with my feelings. And it was like really making me mad. And I sat in that car and I turned around and I said, listen, if y'all are going to do this, I'm going to ask you to turn right back around to the airport. I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to go right back home, because I stopped my life. And people listen to this, because this is a way that I don't know if you can do this in your life, but I got to tell you something. It is really, it has set up happy times with my family that I said to them loud and proud, if this is what this vacation is going to look like at the first hour, I'm getting back in a plane and I'm going right back home, because I didn't stop my life, take time away from my boyfriend, take time away from my business, take time away from my friends to come here to be miserable.
You set a boundary.
I set a really hard boundary. So what they said was, okay, you know what? Yes, we hear you. And this is what we're going to do. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, Marcel was at this vacation and he said, well, I don't know. I kind of feel like we're talking behind your back, or because I'm there with them or whatever. And I said, no. I'm actually really happy about it. I'm not happy about it because I don't want them talking about this stuff, because it irritates the heck out of me. No, it irritates the hell out of me. Okay. But I am pleased that my parents and my brothers, my family is respecting a boundary that I set. I don't want them talking about this stuff when I'm there. I don't want to participate in that. I want to talk about good stuff and fun stuff.
Which is we're talking about benefits, right, of letting go. Because you let all that go, you're in touch with your feelings. You know what feelings are in you, what are the real feelings, and you're able to set a boundary without afraid of what they'll think or what they do.
Yeah, but I don't care.
In essence, if you have a relationship, if there's 20 things you can talk about, you said, that's one thing I don't want to talk about. There's 19 others that we can.
Exactly.
And so,
and also another point
that's a big benefit of resolving all of this.
And by the way,
internal conflict.
It's important to realize that doesn't change the fact that it brings up feelings.
Sure.
Like there's anger.
Sure.
Like when you told me that story, it's like, and I know there are times where I know that that's happening, and I want to go. Do I want to go out there, roll around in the mud, and say, "Look, you da da da," and get into a big old political back and forth with them? But what benefit does that hold for me? I'm not going to change their mind. They're not going to change my mind. And all of that time that we have spent not changing anybody's mind, rolling around, creating angry feelings, we're not having a good time. I'm not enjoying my parents. I'm not enjoying the time with my boyfriend. I'm not enjoying the time with my godson. It doesn't change anything. All it does is, what does it do? It gives me an opportunity to roll around in ugly, yucky feelings.
Exactly. And so that's a huge benefit of doing this. So any of these lessons can help bring you to this point. So really, if you
it's
think
about choice.
It's about choice. So, Albert Einstein, he figured out the theory of relativity. So he took what I call the 5 known realities. You have space, you have time, you have matter, and you have energy. So what if somebody says, you need to come up with theory of relativity? What would you do? He thought it out.
Google.
Right? He came out. Everybody knows E equals MC squared. E is energy, M is matter, and then space and time. So this to me is the E equals MC squared of happiness.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's powerful.
It's summed up in letting go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And letting go is a constant.
Of feeling. What are
negative feelings?
It's corny.
The things that keep us stuck from living a happy, fulfilled life.
That's it. And this is what you and I are really realizing it. So I've noticed that feelings will come up with me, and I will let them go, because what I'm doing is I'm blaming you for my feelings that I picked up somewhere else. And that's where relationships end, because we can't work through that. You really getting to know somebody is really knowing what's making them tick deep down, when we all want the same thing. We want to overcome fear, and we want to achieve happiness.
Exactly.
Not necessarily success, because success can be a symbol of happiness that can just get taken. What if success is you become, a multimillionaire, and all of a sudden you lose it? Now what? Now you're no longer happy.
Or
right?
maybe you're a millionaire and you find that you're still unfulfilled.
Absolutely. So it all comes from within. And I think that's the key thing, is from within. And what's blocking that from coming from within you. So
that's perfect. And actually, this is a perfect place to land.
Yes.
Because when we come back, we're going to give you some nuggets on how to get the benefits of letting go, or at least where to start.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. For more tips and ways to dig deep and get real, sign up for our newsletter, read blogs, and shop our merch at fightthegoodfightclub.com.
Wow, we are back with Marcel and Cynthia, and lesson number 68, Love Holds No Grievances. We've had a really powerful show today, I feel. I feel so great about what we've gone through. So we started with talking about this lesson, and then we talked about the consequences of not letting go, how it shows up in our lives, how it can show up in our lives. And then we talked about the benefits of letting go and what happens when we choose to live in joy and peace and happiness and create those thoughts that support those beautiful feelings, right? And now we're going to give some nuggets to our audience, right? Marcel, talk to us about how we can start identifying these grievances that we've been holding on to.
The easiest way is just to sit down and just close your eyes for a moment and see what bubbles up to the surface. It's going to be your grievances.
So that when we close our eyes, don't make it do anything. Just what is causing you pain?
That's it.
Is that a question? So close your eyes. Ask the question and close your eyes.
That's it.
What makes me hurt? What's hurting me?
What is what is bothering me?
What is
really bothering me?
Okay, so the question is, what is really bothering me?
And you ask yourself that question. So a lot of times people say, well, I can't meditate. There's so much noise going on. What is that noise? That noise is a self-preservation technique that we've developed. It's a coping mechanism not to deal with the truth. That noise just... So when you try to meditate, all of a sudden, I can't block out the noise. The noise is so thick because you're so afraid of what you're going to find out, what's underneath the noise. That's why if you're honest, so again, we had talked about being completely honest with yourself. Dr. Hawkins said this, the surest way from the lowest levels is to be truthful with yourself and honest with yourself. Who said it? Shakespeare.
Be true to thyself. To thine own self be true.
And therefore thou canst be untruthful with anyone else or dishonest, right?
There you go.
First, you have to be truthful with yourself. And most of my life, I wasn't truthful with myself because I didn't know how to be.
Yeah.
It was always, I just didn't know, right?
Well, some people are also really afraid. I remember that same toxic person, whatever, was going through a divorce. And I said to this person, because I've known them for so many years, and I said, instead of going into another relationship, I said, why don't you just stay by yourself and really, think about why this is happening? And she flat out looked at me and said, nope, not doing it. I said, why? Yeah. She said, because I'm afraid of what I'll find.
That's it.
And I got to tell you something. My heart hurt for her so much in that moment. It was such a look into, and that was the beginning of the end of our relationship. It started to unravel. But I thought it was one of the most true statements I ever heard anybody say.
Yeah.
I felt so deeply for her at that moment. She said, I don't want to know. I'm afraid of what I'll see.
Yeah. And, so there you go. So what's really bothering me when you get down is going to be a feeling, and usually it's going
to hurt. Nobody wants to feel that hurt.
A feeling of loss of some sort. Abandonment.
Yeah.
And no one those are so traumatic. And I'm speaking
Fear,
personally.
Abandonment, guilt, shame.
It's the worst thing to feel abandoned. It's the worst thing to feel scared, not knowing what your life's going to be tomorrow. And then if you overcome that somehow, but it's still there and you don't realize, and it's ruining relationships. You keep encountering unhappiness. At some point, you have to address it, and it's sad to say.
That's the heavy lifting. That's the hard work.
And the tragedy to me in this human life is many people can't, and in fact, it gets so bad that they check themselves out.
Yeah.
And that to me, so if I have danced on that ledge for a second, and I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to figure this out.
Well, and I got to tell you, in some cases, what you're saying, where they check out or whatever, it's so. I went to therapy. I've done cumulatively probably about 20 years because mine was so scary and so difficult, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there and it starts to bubble up, what's bothering you, and it terrifies you so much, to our listeners, I urge you to stop and seek counsel.
Yeah. Exactly.
Find someone, talk to someone you trust, a counselor, someone you love, a therapist, a spiritual leader, someone that you trust that can help you, because the reality is that what's on the other side is so beautiful.
That's right.
And is waiting for you.
And the other thing I'll mention along those lines is I got I don't know if I mentioned it before, but someone texted me not real long ago, a suicide text.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to check themselves out. And she said what kept her going was over the years, I knew her because her mother had died. We would kind of keep in touch, just hey, how you doing? But she said that she felt I was the only person on the planet that cared about her. So what I'm saying is people who takes one person to care. And then if you feel no one cares, that's when I think, or someone doesn't take the time to listen, and
or the pain is so great
we've seen these
that
people,
you can't.
These mass shootings, okay, and then people take themselves out. It's because they're trying to project the pain they feel inside, is what I believe. And again, who am I? I obviously think about this stuff a lot because I've been trying to resolve through my own pains and grievances and sufferings and losses. And the whole purpose of this podcast was selfishly, I wanted to work this out. And you and I were talking, but I got my wish. I'm really, here we are. And, you know, those things I just talked about, a lot of times the emotions would come out. I've worked through all that, and I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of loss. I don't have the pain of losing. Like my brother's 8th anniversary of his passing is coming up Halloween, and I've been thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I've accepted it, and, you know, and I've let it go. You know, and I went through those Kubler-Ross steps unbeknownst to me. I'm like, wow, I actually did those. That woman was smart, you know. And so, but at any rate, so the whole, I guess us talking now, maybe somebody will tune into this and they go, wow, you know, pick up Course in Miracles, go to that lesson, pick up the letting go, whatever's helped us, you know. But really, I am really healing through all this, and I just want to be happy. You know, I want to generate that, and maybe, you know, just, and I do, and I've read this at many places. When you heal and you project happiness, you do affect the universe.
Oh, yes, you do.
And maybe someone else over here did something bad that was starting to do another tear in the universe, and what you did was counterbalance that tear.
It's contagious.
And you mended that little tear. And so, and I'm really starting to believe that what we do,
and law of attraction, you attract
the entire universe.
For sure. It's a ripple that goes out into the universe.
That to me is motivation to want to heal this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're not projecting it on others, blaming others. I don't blame a single person in my past anymore. No one.
That's the hardest part, isn't it? Taking responsibility for our own feelings, our own happiness, our own unhappiness.
Exactly. Yeah.
When here's the great news. Here's the great news. It's within us.
That's it.
Right now.
That's the major premise.
To have exactly what we want.
All
of it.
Who's got the key to the box that holds peace? How can we con them into letting us get a little bit of it? There is no one. We all have it in us. And the grievances is blocking it. It could be a tiny grain of sand. In fact, Course in Miracles says it seems that a tiny grain of sand is more powerful than the universe because it's keeping us from the universe of happiness in us. So I think that's really powerful. So if that's the case, get rid of all grievances, because love holds no grievances. So, yep.
We're going to leave it right there because that's absolute perfection. You're so smart. Every time we do one of these episodes, I just remember how brilliant you are.
We feed off each other.
You get cuter every episode, too. You just get more handsome. So,
I needed that validation. I was scooping myself up this morning.
Honey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right back at you. You see what you are, babe.
Thanks, babe. So that's our episode for today, and we hope that you'll listen to us. Please, if you would like to share your thoughts, if you would like to learn more, fightthegoodfightclub.com. That's where you can find us. You can listen to us on your favorite podcast app. And I guess that's it. Until next time.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Peace be with you.
If you enjoy our podcast, we invite you to subscribe to Fight the Good Fight Club on YouTube. Hit the notification button and give us a thumbs up. Also, head over to fightthegoodfightclub.com and sign up for the newsletter, read blogs, and more. Thanks for listening.